Welcome in, Minnesota sports fans, to another edition of Vikings on SI. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Joe Nelson and Will Ragatz as we have a Predictions Friday. I know yesterday on the video, Will, at the end, I previewed and said we're going to come back with five matchups. But I'll be honest, a little peek behind the scenes here. I thought yesterday was Wednesday, and so I was previewing a Thursday video. Not the case. Not what we're going to do today. We're going right to predictions. So let's jump right into this. And this one feels like Vikings, Jaguars at Jaguars, a very injury-depleted Jaguars side, guys. This one feels like it has blowout written all over it. So that means I've got to start nowhere else other than Joe Nelson's prediction.
Well, it'll be in the article on the website. But I'm going massive blowout. I will be concerned if the Vikings don't win by 20 or more points. I'm looking through the injury report for the Jaguars, and you see that they've got 8 key offensive players who were limited or did not practice on Thursday. Now, I think 5 or 6 of them will probably wind up playing, but they're not going to have Ezra Cleveland. It doesn't sound like Trevor Lawrence is going to play. That gives you Mac Jones and then a backup guard named Blake Hance, who's going to have to block Harrison Phillips.
Who went to Northwestern.
Blake Hance went to Northwestern. He's one of you.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness. Well, he had a 40.4 pass blocking grade in 21 snaps of relief action against the Eagles. And granted, the Eagles' interior defensive line is more imposing than Minnesota's, but he's going to have his hands full. Brandon Scherf, their right guard's got an ankle that he's probably going to play through. 2 of their top 3 receivers are banged up. Brian Thomas Jr. was game time last week against the Eagles, and he played through a chest injury. I'm guessing he'll do the same this week. And then what's his face? Gabe Davis, who's having a terrible season. He's banged up as well, but he was limited the last couple of days. I don't know what his status is for Sunday.
And Christian Kirk is like hurt, right?
Yeah, I think he's out. So, he's hurt. He's not even – I don't even think he's listed on the team's depth chart right now on the actual Jaguars website. And then, of course, you have Tank Bigsby, who's dealing with, I believe, an ankle. And then Travis Etienne is an ankle or a hamstring. And even their third running back, Dearness Johnson, showed up on the injury report yesterday with a hamstring, which is never good, which means he's probably going to have issues. They have a lot of problems on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense can keep them in games every now and again, but it's not looking good. They're playing at home. It'll be nice weather. The Vikings have absolutely no reason not to go down there and whoop some butt. 50 you want to score? 50-10. 50-10, and that's inspired by the 1998 Minnesota Vikings, who on Sunday Night Football with Mike Patrick on the call back when it was really good. Loved Mike Patrick. They lit up those Jaguars 50-10. It was amazing. One of my favorite games as a kid. I was 15 years old, watching the Vikings just blow everybody away. That was my safe space as a child. The 1998 Vikings, until Gary Anderson ruined everything for everybody. And I got on a snowmobile that day, drove around, and thought about driving into some thin ice. I didn't. I'm still alive, but I really did consider it at the time.
Yeah,
this took a dark turn.
That's my 2009. I was 12 that season, and the Garrett Hartley field goal was quite crushing. But yeah, I think that 1998 was the first Vikings Jaguars meeting ever, because they came into the league. I don't know if it was that season or not long before that. And the Vikings lost to the Jaguars in 2001, but overall 6-1 against them. Haven't lost since then. The Jaguars are they've kind of been synonymous for most of their existence with just high draft picks and mediocrity and dysfunction. And I mean, they've had some star players mixed in and a few good seasons, but it's been rough for them. They're in the midst right now at 2-7 of kind of another lost season. I've been seeing some talk on social media, should they just shut Trevor Lawrence down and turn to 2025, which is not a good place to be when it's November 8th. We're basically halfway through the season, but yeah, I'm with you. This to me, it feels like this really has to be a Vikings blowout. And I know they're favored by 7, and the spread for a road team is rarely going to get too much higher than that. But not gambling advice or anything like that. But I'd feel decent that the Vikings can win by more than a touchdown here, just because Mac Jones hasn't made a start in the NFL since last November with the Patriots. He obviously had a good rookie season, was a Pro Bowler in 21, but then the last 2 years,
Pro Bowler, yeah, okay.
Pro Bowler, for whatever that's worth. Yeah, he was pretty good that year, but really struggled to take care of the ball the last 2 years. Found himself out of having to take a backup job in Jacksonville this year. It's not looking great for them. I mean, they have a few star players. Brian Thomas Jr. has been really a revelation on the offensive side of the ball. I think the lesson being to just draft LSU wide receivers whenever you can.
Yeah.
And defensively, Josh Hines-Allen is still a very good edge rusher. Trevon Walker, the former number 1 pick, has been solid as well. They should have taken Aiden Hutchinson instead of him, but he's not a bad player. And so that Hines-Allen against Cam Robinson revenge game matchup will be one of the more intriguing kind of X's and O, their on-field aspects to watch in this game. But yeah, I don't have too much deep football analysis. It's just the Vikings are a much better team here. There's no big game coming up the week after that to look ahead to because they're playing the Titans the week after that. They know they have to win all of these games to have a chance at keeping pace with the juggernaut Lions in the NFC North. I think they're still smarting a little bit from those 2 losses in 5 days. They're going to go down there on a sunny day and play really well. I haven't actually thought of my score prediction yet, but I think it'll be something like 34-14 or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think I'm more near Joe when I made my prediction to you, Will. I did 42-10. I just feel like the Vikings,
I like it.
Their offense keeps rolling or gets rolling again. They use this as a real springboard to finally run up the score on someone big time. The defense is just going to confuse and hassle Mac Jones. I just feel that this one is just, it has blowout written all over it, which leads me to the question, and Joe, you kind of referenced it, that you would be concerned if it's not a blowout. How concerned should we be if it is not a blowout? If it is just a one-score game like tends to happen more often than not under Kevin O'Connell's regime, if it's not a blowout by more than 2 touchdowns, what's your thinking coming out of that game, guys?
If that happens, it probably means Sam Darnold had some oopsies, right? It means Sam Darnold threw a pick 6 or Sam Darnold had 3 turnovers. I think that's the only way that actually happens, because I'm fairly confident Mac Jones is going to give the ball up a couple of times. And if there's ever a game where you're looking for a defensive touchdown tout, this is probably it. Minnesota's already got a few this season, and they very well could add to it this week. I mean, if it is,
who's going to get it though?
Probably Andrew Van Ginkel. I mean, let's be honest.
Probably.
It feels like a safe bet.
Bernard has had a deflected pass hit him in the face mask 2 games in a row, and he's adamant that the next one he's an athlete. He'll catch that sucker and take it back. So somebody's going to get one. I just think I will be concerned if it's not a blowout, and that probably means there was a lot of mistakes that they have to clean up. The other worst case scenario would be that Mac Jones goes Ed Donatel on him again and lights him up. And for some reason, there's just this weakness in the Vikings defense that we experienced against the Lions and the Rams. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's a big difference between playing Matthew Stafford with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, and then Jared Goff and all the Lions' weapons compared to Mac Jones and some injured Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. and no Christian Kirk. Evan Ingram ain't going to do it, folks. And you got to remember, too, Minnesota has Blake Cashman likely back in the lineup. This will be a 100% healthy Minnesota Vikings defense. And when they were 100% healthy, they were 5-0, and they made everybody look stupid. And I got a feeling that's exactly what will happen again this Sunday.
Yeah, I wrote a preview on this game yesterday, Vikings on SI, and I'm just struggling to find the math where this isn't a multi-score Vikings win. Because you look at Mac Jones going against Brian Flores' defense, that's just, with Blake Cashman coming back, it's a really tough spot to make your first ever start with a new team, a team whose vibes aren't great right now at 2-7. And maybe they'll be able to move the ball a little bit at times. I mean, even Joe Flacco at times was able to, find some of those spaces over the middle of the field. But again, with Blake Cashman coming back, I don't know how available those are going to be. The Jaguars tackles are Walker Little and Anton Harrison, and neither has been particularly good this year. I think I don't think Jonathan Grenard's season opening streak of having at least 5 pressures in every game is going to come to an end in this one. So on the other side of the ball, I mean, this is where I really think Sam Darnold, this is a great opportunity for him to shake off that 2-interception game. And yes, he was actually quite good for most of that game, but the 2 interceptions leave a bad taste in your mouth. Now he's going against the Jaguars defense that is 31st in DVOA, 32nd, dead last in opponent EPA, expected points added per play, 31st in yards allowed, 30th in points allowed, worst pass defense in the league. They have 5 takeaways only in 9 games. That's tied for the fewest in the league. It's just, they got a couple decent edge rushers, a couple decent interior linebackers, and then the secondary is just a total mess. There's nobody doing anything at defensive tackle. The Vikings have their full complement of weapons. So I just really see this being a nice day for the Vikings offense. The Jaguars are allowing 28 points per game this year. I think the Vikings at least get to that number. And then if they do, where is the math that allows Mac Jones to get close to that number against Brian Flores' defense? I just don't see it. Again, this is the NFL. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. But this should be a game where the Vikings are able to go down there with a lot of their healthy players and hopefully have some fun in the Florida sun. And one last thing I was thinking of when you said the defensive touchdown is, here's my deep sleeper. Dallas Turner, he's from the state of Florida.
Okay.
He's going back to Florida for the first time. He's not from Jacksonville, but I think he gets a defensive touchdown, the first of his career.
Ooh.
So you went to Northwestern, which means you're probably a lot smarter than anyone here gives you credit for, right? Right?
He's also probably used to bad football.
I went there, I can type words, it's a journalism school, but you're probably pretty good at math, right?
Math was not my best subject. I
can't take anything you just said seriously.
Yeah.
Because it was all based on math. You can't find the math for the Jaguars to get to 28. That's out the window.
Well, yeah. No, I was decent at math in high school, certainly.
Okay, I got a math one for you.
Sure.
What is 981 minus 783?
198. That's the Jefferson to catch Jamar Chase.
Hey, you're way on top of this thing. And here's the tout.
I was thinking about it last night when I was watching him go for dang near 300 yards.
Yeah. So Jefferson needs 199 yards to reclaim the top spot in the NFL in receiving yards after Jamar Chase went nuts on Thursday Night Football. This might be the day he does that. This could happen against Jacksonville.
If there's a matchup to do it, yeah.
And he only needs, I think I saw he only needs 108 yards to pass Torrey Holt for most receiving yards through the first 5 years of his career.
Dude, you know who the Vikings could use right now? Zahir Hakeem. He would be an incredible number 3 or 4 receiver on this, just stretching the field, opening things up for everybody.
As a lot of people pointed out to me when I tweeted about the Jefferson Chase thing, Jefferson does have a game in hand of having the bye, and the Bengals have not had their bye. But I wasn't saying he's not going to beat Chase in the long run. I was just saying he needs a lot of yards, almost 200 to be exact, if he's going to be in the lead next week. Because that was a pretty awesome Bengals-Ravens Thursday night game, even if it ended with a bit of a controversial no call for the second Thursday in 3 weeks.
Dude, the Bengals don't have much defense, but that might be the best offense on a 4-6 team that I've ever seen.
Yeah, seriously.
It's wild to me that Justin Jefferson has only one game in his career where he's gone over 200 yards.
Was that against Detroit?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was in a
loss. He's got like a 190, he's got 180s.
Yeah, he's got 2 193 and 192s, and then a couple 180s, but only one game over 200 yards. I think he doubles that this weekend. Speaking of that, of the offense, go ahead.
Well, sorry to interrupt you, but I think perhaps one barrier to that is him having like 150 yards early third quarter, but the Vikings are now up 3 touchdowns, and they want to get Brandon Powell and Trent Sherfield a bit of run to keep their guys fresh. We'll see.
That was going to be along the lines of my next question: is do we see a little bit more exploration of this offense from Kevin O'Connell this week with an easier task in front of him. If they get up ahead, do we see more Cam Akers, or do we see more of these guys who haven't been given a whole lot of run because they want to get some rest for their starters, but also see what they can get out of these guys throughout in big minutes and normal minutes of games to see what they can add to their offense going down the stretch here when harder games start to come down the schedule in a couple weeks' time?
I think it's possible. Again, I don't want to totally assume that this is going to be some huge blowout with a bunch of garbage time. I think it's possible, but I would say one thing. I would like to see them continue to get Jordan Addison involved, because I think he didn't say it, and when he was asked about his relative drop in production from his rookie year, he said the right things, and that whole free three thing wasn't actually him being dissatisfied or anything. But I think there had to be just a little bit of natural frustration from a wide receiver. Like, I mean, TJ Hawkinson was out, and he just wasn't. He was getting 2 or 3 touches a game for a while when he was healthy. And you saw on Sunday night with that catch how talented he is and how explosive he can be. And then he could have had an even bigger day if Darnold had thrown to him on the second interception. So I'd like to see them continue to take some of those shots to Addison, continue to get the ball in his hands, because he really is. I mean, he's overshadowed by Jefferson, obviously, but he's a playmaker. He's a very good route runner. He's got good hands. He's got some real burst to his game. So that's one I'd like to see. And then the other one you said, Cam Akers, like they're obviously going to give Aaron Jones plenty of work in this game, but if they get up, I'd like to see a lot of Cam Akers, and maybe even mix in some Ty Chandler as well.
I would love to see that, because that means you're giving Aaron Jones, who is on the age curve, he's
a lot of touches he's had this year.
You need to keep him as healthy as you possibly can. So if the Vikings are up by 3 touchdowns in the third quarter, I would love to see them go preseason on this bit and just kind of rest some of these key players a little bit. Don't risk injury. Schedule gets a lot tougher down the stretch, and you can't be having guys who are banged up when you're facing the Lions or the 49ers or the Packers or the Eagles or the Commanders in the playoffs this year. Even the Bucks, a team like the Bucks or the Falcons. I mean, it's tough. You've got to be fully healthy if you're going to make a deep run with this roster.
We've talked a number of times this season about the revenge game status, and that being a thing in these games with Sam Darnold against the Jets and Blake Cashman and Jonathan Grenard against the Texans earlier this season. There's been a number of them. Well, it happens again. Cam Robinson, you wrote about this, Will. A little bit of a revenge game here for Cam Robinson after being traded by the Jaguars just a couple weeks ago. Goes up against them this weekend. Looking back at that Colts game, we didn't talk about this much. What did you guys think of how he performed at the left tackle position, and what that says for the Vikings offensive line in front of Sam Darnold for the rest of the season?
I thought he was fine. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I thought he was really good against the Colts. But the thing that it made me start thinking, man, I know the Vikings probably aren't going to re-sign him, and this is more of a rental to help out with the Christian Darrisaw injury. But I don't know what kind of ability a 6'7", 320-pound man has to move inside to guard. But could you imagine if Cam Robinson had any kind of positional flexibility, and you could, because Blake Brandle's 6'7", he's playing left guard. You could run it back next year if you're really happy with Cam Robinson and he wants to play for a winner. I don't think he'd want to take guard money, but maybe you make a sweeten the pot a little bit for him and say, let's move you over to right guard. We'll solve that problem, and now we have monsters all over the offensive line. You'd have Darrisaw, who's 6'5", 320 or whatever, and then Brandel 6'7". Figure out your center situation with Garrett Bradbury, and then pipe dream Cam Robinson at left or right guard, 6'6". And then you have Brian O'Neill as a monster at right tackle. I want to see something like that happen. This guy clearly likes it here, and of course he'll get left tackle money in free agency, but maybe there's a way where they can make this happen. And maybe if they were thinking long term, they thought, okay, we can get this guy for like a late round pick and then convince him to stay. Maybe I'm just firing out a bunch of stupid BS, but that's where I was thinking on Sunday after seeing him play.
No, I think I've seen some people say that as well, and I don't think it can be ruled out if he really buys into the culture here. and loves it and wants to stick around. I would say it's probably, I mean, as you admitted, pretty unlikely, just because, I mean, the guy's been a left tackle exclusively in his, I think, 8-year NFL career. He's probably going to, if he plays well down the stretch of the season, some team will give him starting level left tackle money. And that oftentimes in pro sports tends to weigh out a little bit over the situation and culture stuff. So we'll see, but yeah, it's certainly fun to think about having. That'd probably be one of the bigger guard combinations ever if you got him and Brandel in there. But I thought he was solid against the Colts. You didn't really think of him or hear his name much. He had one holding call, but they need him this week because if there's any way that the Jaguars defense can slow down this Vikings team, it's if they're getting a lot of edge pressure with Hines Allen and with Trevon Walker. And Hines Allen almost exclusively lines up on the right side of the defense, so against the left tackle. That'll be a good one. That's the two guys who've gone at it a bunch over the years in training camp finally get to go live in some real meaningful reps.
Well, we already saw that with Brian O'Neill and Danielle Hunter this year, and Danielle Hunter kind of owned that battle.
Yeah, I think this one is slightly advantage to the defensive player because Hines Allen had 17 and a half sacks last year, and I think he's only got 5 or so this year, but great PFF numbers, pressures, pass rush grade, all that. So the Vikings will want to, throw Josh Oliver over on that side, I think, more often than not.
So then looking a little bit further down the road, this game starts off a series of 3 games for the Vikings on the road against teams that they should easily beat. Percent chances from you guys that the Vikings, when they return home to US Bank Stadium on December 1st against the Cardinals, that they're 9-2.
Joe, you want to start?
What are they now? They're 6-2.
6-2.
Yeah.
So they got to beat the Jags,
games.
the Titans, and the Bears.
All on the road.
97%. Ooh. I mean, you're not going to lose to the Jaguars. You're not going to lose to the Titans. If you do, they should sell the franchise. And then the Bears. We talked about this earlier this week. It's like, Matt Eberflus is losing that locker room, and Caleb Williams is struggling as a rookie. I mean, yeah.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna come down from that a bit. I'm gonna say
96.
No, I'll say 65% chance, maybe 70% chance. They should win all 3, but I think if you dove into I'll nerd out right now, the implied probability of the money lines and to do it 3 times, it would be might even be lower than 65. But I think they can do it. The one that gives me a little pause is just going to Soldier Field. I know the Bears have been struggling, and Caleb Williams, rookie quarterback against Brian Flores, that seems to favor the Vikings. But they do have a good defense, so I could see that maybe slipping up there in a division game. But they absolutely should win all 3 of these games. The only thing I'll say is the way we've talked about this Vikings-Jaguars game, now I'm just sort of creeping into my mind that it's going to be like a sweaty tie game in the fourth quarter, and John Parker Romo is going to miss a field goal or something. And
the Jags were down, I think, like 22-0 to Philadelphia, and they battled back, and they almost came all the way back before Trevor Lawrence threw a pick in the end zone and late in the fourth quarter. But I mean, they gave Green Bay all they could handle, right? I mean,
5 of their 7 losses this year by 1 score. But again, that's with Trevor Lawrence. I just don't know about
their starting quarterback.
I don't know about 2024.
Supposedly generational, I don't know. I don't see it happening at all. I think this is an absolute ass kicking for the ages.
You mentioned John Parker Romo there. He gets his debut this weekend after the injury to Will Reichard. Hopefully everything's all right there, because it looked like for once the Vikings had a good kicker that could make kicks consistently. Just a fun prediction at the end of the show here. What does he do this weekend? How many field goals does he make, and what's his longest?
I think the Vikings are going to play. Kevin O'Connell plays things differently this week than he would with Will Reichard.
Yeah.
And maybe they go for it on 4th a little more aggressively if they're in the long field goal range where you would just send Reichard out for a 55-yarder. I think they'll want to make it as easy as they can on him in his NFL debut, but I think he gets a bunch of extra points, and maybe a field goal or two mixed in there.
I think John Parker-Romo runs for a first down on a fake field goal toss.
There always is a Kevin O'Connell trick play, so.
And you would never expect it with new kicker guy. This is the time.
You wouldn't. That's true.
That is good. That is a good prediction.
And new long snapper too, Jake McQuaid.
Yeah.
Former Pro Bowler with the Rams.
What were Tony and Nolan's predictions if you have them?
Oh yeah, let me pull those up real quick.
So we get those and we get those guys on the record here.
But they're always wrong, so it doesn't matter.
Tony is, yeah.
You won't be surprised to know that nobody went out on a limb and picked an upset here. Tony went Vikings 31. Vikings 31, Jaguars 17. Yeah, he snapped that streak, I think, against either the Rams or the Colts. Nolan went 28-17. So they're both multi-score wins, but not absolute shellackings.
Gotcha.
Which means it'll be a shellacking.
I really think it should be. It's just going to come down to Darnold taking care of the ball and the defense doing what it did the first 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Good stuff from you guys today. Go read all their work over at Vikings, Twins, Timberwolves, Gophers, and Badgers on SI. Once again, hit the subscribe button. Does help us get found. Helps you get notified every time we post a new video here on the channel. We'll be back this weekend. Got a couple game recaps coming up later on this weekend. Be sure to view those and be ready for those once those games end. And we'll look forward to talking to you guys right back here on the channel on Monday.